going through. Wonderful. We have someone from Tortola. We have persons from Trinidad and Tobago. We have a wide range of from secondary, primary, and I'm seeing a wide range of subject areas: geography, foreign languages, math, and a wide range of persons who are from Trinidad and Tobago. So welcome. Someone is from Martha Elliott St. Xavier. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, fantastic. Okay, so we're gonna have quite a number of persons coming in. So I'm just trying to give them maybe 2 more minutes and then we will start so we won't have the too many disruptions. All right, okay. So while we're waiting for the others to join us, how many of you here, just by a show of hands, if you can raise your hand on the using the reaction button, how many of you have used the ChatGPT before? I'm seeing 1, 2, 3. All right, so a couple of persons have used it. Good. So we have quite a number of beginners then, I can assume, if you didn't raise your hand. And we have a couple of persons who have used it. And what we're going to do today is really look at how we can use ChatGPT to maximize our time as teachers, right? So, of course, we're talking about technology, and we're not going to have like a very long presentation because most of it is really about being hands-on and really diving into how best we can maximize using ChatGPT. But it's good to just talk about it a little bit. So, of course, ChatGPT and AI have been the new buzzwords recently, and there's been a lot of debate, if you've been following it, on whether or not it is something that should be in education. Some schools have actually banned it. Some states have said no to it. University lecturers are saying, yes, bring it on. Some are saying no, and there's a lot of discussion around ChatGPT. However, like with everything that's new, sometimes there's a little fear that surrounds, something that's new, and it's like, what is this thing capable of? And of course, people sometimes, get a little overzealous and start thinking about all the bad things that can happen. But like with every technology, there's good and there's bad, and it's not going anywhere. So it is best to be able to figure out how to leverage it well. So what's the challenge with most teachers? Anybody can relate to this image? Is this like an image that hits home with any of you? Or is this like, no, this is not me at all? I'm seeing some people raising their hands, right? So we have a lot on our plates as teachers, right? I mean, it's like you're dealing with classroom supplies, you're dealing with lesson planning, you're dealing with notes from parents, and just life in general, and it's a lot. So why not use ChatGPT or any other tool to help us to lighten that load? And so I want to ask you to share with me, and I'm going to share this link in the chat, or you can scan it if you have a phone. Did it share? All right. So go ahead and click that link, or you can scan the QR code, and I would like you to answer that question. Think about the things in the classroom that you really would like to be able to have some help with as teachers. They might be administrative tasks, All right, so I'm going to give you all a couple of minutes. For those of you who just joined us, I'm going to paste the link again. I'm just asking a question, so I would like you all to answer. And I'm going to shift over now to your responses just to see what people are saying. As a couple more persons get in. All right, so let's look at some of your answers. Right, so some persons said, and you can keep putting in answers. We have lesson plans coming up really big, marking, exams, report writing, test construction. We have disciplining, correcting assignments. I just saw something with parents, in responding to parents, language, morals, PowerPoint, attendance. Right. So, I mean, so clearly the presentation just now, the picture with the teacher having all of that on her shoulders clearly represents a lot of what we are seeing here. Now, ChatGPT may not be able to help you with everything here, but certainly it can help you with some of these tasks. And today's session is intended to be able to show you how you can use ChatGPT in the best way. So just before, we have a couple of persons still coming in. So just before we get into the actual platform, I just wanted to share a little bit about what ChatGPT is. Because, you know, a lot of people are walking around thinking it's like this magical thing. I mean, it's a really great invention, but it's not a magical tool, right? It is a language model. So what does that mean? It has been trained, the free version of ChatGPT has been trained on up to any information that is available on the internet up to 2021. So in the free version, if you were to ask it information that is needed past 2021, then you will not actually get accurate information. But the free version has been trained up to 2021. The paid version, however, is based on the internet. So the paid version is more up to date. And as you enter information onto the internet, it will continue to read and develop. And that's why, you know, sometimes you hear that AI is, people call it sentient, you know, but it really is that it's learning based on language, right? So it's been trained on vast amounts of data, and hence the reason it is able to answer your questions when you ask it. And it has been trained to actually generate complex and coherent text, and even have interactive conversations with you. So with its capabilities, ChatGPT can actually be a game changer for teachers in streamlining tasks and enhancing instruction. So we are actually going to jump right into looking at ChatGPT. So I'm going to share my screen so that you can see what it actually looks like. And I would ask you to, of course, follow along, especially if you have two devices. So what does ChatGPT actually look like? So I'm going to go to an incognito window. And if I were to type ChatGPT, you can search for it. The website is actually chat.openai.com. So when you click on that, it will open up and it will ask you to sign up if you've never done so before. If you have signed up, you will log in. And the sign up is pretty simple. So you're going to, you can search for ChatGPT, or you can actually type chat.openai.com. You also have, it's available as apps in the various app stores. All right. Let me just see. All right. So we sign up, right? This is just for persons who may never have done it. And you can, if you have a Google address, right? If you have a Microsoft address, if you have Apple, etc., you can go ahead. So I'm going to give everybody, just in case you've never done it, a couple of minutes. Well, it shouldn't take a couple of minutes, but a few minutes, maybe 1 minute to sign up to make sure that we can follow along, and you can go ahead and do so. All right, so let me sign up with a new address just for you to see what it looks like. So when I press that, it will ask me to put in a password, right? So I'm going to put in a password. And then I press continue. And then you're going to have to verify your email. So when you verify your email, just means you go to your email and you will see a link that you have to say, yes, it was me signing up, right? And you are able to get in. All right. So as everybody signed up, giving out 2 more minutes just to get signed up. And then we get started. All right, good. Everybody's good? Oh, I'm seeing somebody saying they weren't seeing my shared screen for ChatGPT. Are you seeing it now? Okay. So we're going to go now to back to our first task, right? So of course, we are looking at how do we use ChatGPT. And if you have any questions, feel free to unmute. I'm going to allow you to be able to unmute yourselves and you can ask questions as needed, okay? Or you can put it in the chat. All right, so let's start with lesson planning. So lesson planning is a big one, but I'm just going to give you some general rules before we dive into lesson planning. The key thing with ChatGPT in order for it to work successfully is really to make sure that your instructions are as clear and detailed as possible. Remember, this is not a human being, so it's not going to interpret what it thinks you might want to ask, right? So you have to ensure that the instructions are extremely clear. So what are some things that I recommend? So you would see it, and this is not something that you wouldn't see elsewhere, but these are some of the tips that I have found work really well. If you're going to plan a lesson, you have to think about, just like you would in a written lesson plan, you have to think about who the audience is. So you would start with prompts like, create a lesson plan. And who do you want to create the lesson plan for? Maybe for Form 1, or maybe for grade 5, or maybe for primary school students in standard 3, and you can be as specific as that. So create a lesson plan for, I'm going to do primary school standard 3 students in Trinidad and Tobago. And why am I putting Trinidad and Tobago? Because I wanted to look at the curriculum in Trinidad and Tobago. Because if I were to just put generally, it could pick from anywhere. So once I put Trinidad and Tobago, it actually will look at curriculum information online that is actually from Trinidad and Tobago. So if you're from the US, or if you're from a particular state, you can also put in relation to standards found XYZ. So of course, your next thing would be, you would have to add what subject area, of course, and even more specifically, what topic area. Just make sure, check in the chat. Yes. So yes. So you're going to say in mathematics, specifically an introduction to parameter for 40 minutes. For me, one of the tricks that I have found works really well is also to add particular information that might be related to your class. So for example, and I'm going to show you the different steps, right? I'm going to put this in, and then I'm going to add a layer to it so that you can see what happens. So let's put this in and see what happens. We're creating a lesson plan for primary school standard 3 students in Trinidad and Tobago in mathematics, specifically an introduction to parameter for 40 minutes. Let's see what happens. That was less than 30 seconds, I think. So let's see what it gave us. Introduction to parameter, grade level, standard 3, subject mathematics, duration 40 minutes. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to understand the concept of parameter and apply it to solve simple problems involving finding the parameter of regular and irregular. Materials, procedure, it gives you time, definition of parameter, right? Write the definition, provide examples, finding parameter of regular shape, finding parameter of irregular shape, right? So it gives you a decent enough, right? A decent enough lesson plan. So anybody who teaches primary school, what did you think? You can unmute your microphone. I know we have a couple of primary school teachers here. Y'all are not gonna talk to me?
Yes.
Anybody?
Yes, so far.
Right?
In terms of what you've put there for what would just now. Right. Okay, that's the definition. Yes. Yes. Yeah, it has an actual floated with the different activities, and giving particular time limits to it that's pretty reasonable.
Good.
Yes, it has a good flow.
Somebody said they loved it. Well,
Yeah.
let me show you how much.
It's just I was reading everything and trying to internalize. So
Right.
yes.
So you are going to actually get a chance to do it too. But what if I told you we could make this prompt even better? So this is a nice lesson, no problem. Let's edit the prompt a little bit. So it gave us all the content. It gave us something that was specific to our level. What about if I wanted to, I could literally say, I like to be polite, right? You don't have to because it's a machine, right? But I like to be polite. So please add a movement exercise in this lesson. Also, generate a quiz at the end. So we could have put anything, right? We could have put even the number of students in the class, and we can add. So I will show. Let's see what happens here, right? So let's do it again. So let's see what difference that made. right? So they actually,
Yeah, the engagement is at the beginning. So they begin,
right?
yes.
So they added a nice movement
Activity.
exercise, right? Then you go back to the same introduction, calculating, right? So similar to what happened above, real life application. And then they said, distribute the printed worksheet, but it didn't actually give me the worksheet. So I am going to add now, instead of regenerating the response, I'm going to add what do you all think? So far, so good?
Yes.
We see where it's going to save us some time, right?
A lot, because this was just in a few minutes.
Correct. Now, what about, let me see the chat. so good. Now, I could have even asked it, not just a 5 question, but I could have said, now generate 2 open-ended or 2 worded problems for this topic. We still good?
Yes, very good.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Right? So the thing is, the more layers of instructions that I give it, the easier it becomes for ChatGPT to be able to produce exactly what I want. In our school system, many of our schools across the globe, we have large classes, and we're always talking about we have students of different levels, right? So I'm sticking with the math, and I'm going to go back up to the first instruction, and I'm going to add here, please provide ways to differentiate because I have different levels of students. So let's see what happens now. By the way, all your stuff does not disappear, everything stays. So it's not that you're losing what you had before. You just get different variations of it. So let's see what they suggested in terms of differentiation. So they actually tell you create mixability groups, modified worksheets. So you know what we're going to ask them for, right? We're going to ask them to
For the worksheet.
put the worksheet, right? So we get in there, right? So you could even ask them for 3 modified worksheets. So the more instructions you put, so it's going to provide 3 levels: the beginner, the intermediate, and the advanced level. Now, based on what you have just seen, and I'm going to just stop sharing for 2 minutes. Based on what you have just seen, tell me how much time as a teacher, if you had to do something like that, how much time would it have taken? You could type it in the chat, or you could
probably an hour or even more.
Yeah, because you would have written the lesson plan, then you would have checked over the lesson plan to see if it's how you want it, maybe make modifications. Then you attempt the assessment that you want. And if you want differentiation, again, it's going to take you a few extra minutes to decide how you want to differentiate it based on the students that you have. So
Yep.
you're going, yes, you're definitely going over an hour with this.
Yeah. And I mean, anybody here, you can just apply. Of course, you teach theater art. Remember to add what country you're from, or if you have specific standards that you follow, the time of the lesson, and anything else that you want to include. So for example, if you had, for example, to include a technology component, you can put that, include a technology component with X, I have a PowerPoint, I have a projector. You can put in as much information as you need, and then it will help you to generate that lesson. All right. So now, any questions about the lesson plan? Anybody has any specific questions about the lesson plan? Because we're going on to other things.
Does it have this lesson plan? Do they have lessons plans for special ed?
So it's not that they have, so let's, you know what? You give me something that you would normally have to do. Let's try. What would be a lesson that you normally have to do?
It could be if we sticking with maths, it could be 3D shapes.
Right. So exactly what do you tell me? So create a lesson plan on 3D shape for
Let's say it could say standard 1, but as you stated, there are different levels of students, so it comes from yeah.
So with
you can start with standard 1.
With varying levels, including students with special needs.
Yeah.
So I'm going to add some new words, right? Create an engaging, and I didn't put the time, for 30 minutes. With varying levels, including students with special needs. Create an engaging lesson plan with hands-on activities. Ensure that you include a summative, a differentiated summative assessment. Let's see what happens. So you see it provided something different, an observation, an informal check, and a worksheet. And we can ask them, of course, to go ahead and show us what the worksheet would look like. Isn't this cute? What do you think? Let's see what happens. Let's go back up. So it did the same thing. It gave you the objectives: identify, describe, differentiate, create. It gave you some materials to work with, things like Play-Doh, modeling clay. It spoke to you about the different procedures, right? It explored 3D shapes. It actually gave you questions to ask. Then you had hands-on activity. So they're actually doing different things and showing mixed group ability. Then they provide the summative assessment, and they actually then gave you an activity in terms of what your students could do. What do you think?
Impressive.
Good. So you can do this with any lesson. Now, persons who teach foreign languages, it also gives you stuff in French and Spanish, just letting you all know, or any language as a matter of fact. All right, so you can do it in French and Spanish as well. So are there any questions in terms of lesson planning? Because I want us to move on to a couple more things, and then you are going to test it out and share your experience when you actually do it. Any questions about the lesson plan, or we think we're okay? Yeah? All right. So what else can ChatGPT help you to save time on as a teacher? So some persons actually did say that administrative, like dealing with parents, you know, sometimes you have to write letters. So a parent sends you a very angry letter, and you know, or your principal might send you a letter and you want to respond in a nice way, or you may have a letter that you know you have to write, and sometimes you know you have the ideas in your head, but it's just difficult sometimes to sit and spend that craft it, right? So if I were to say I wanted to write a response to an angry parent who does not, so hold on. Let's start it again. In this case, because you are going to be a teacher responding to a parent, one of the things that it recommends is that you actually state the rule. So you actually tell it, pretend to be a teacher responding to an angry letter sent in by a parent who disagrees with the detention that their child received due to not following the school rules about coming to class late, right? The rules were made very clear, and this is the student's third breach of the rule. So let's see. So let's see what it says. Dear parent, I hope this letter finds you well. I recently received your letter expressing your dissatisfaction with the detention that your child received for arriving late to class multiple times. I appreciate your concerns, and I would like to take the time to address them and provide you with a better understanding of the situation. It goes on to talk about the rules. It speaks about the fact that the child has been tardy to class 3 times. It goes on to talk about, you know, the policy, etc. Now, this letter is a little long, right? So, you know, your parent not sitting down to read all of this. So what kind of things can I do? First of all, were we impressed that it could generate a lovely letter like this and save you stress of trying to be diplomatic sometimes as teachers when things happen, right? It provides a really lovely little letter there for you. But we can also say, please make it shorter. And then it takes that same letter and it made a shorter version of it. And you there have your letter. Now, I did not show you this at the beginning, but on ChatGPT, you will actually see this little clipboard here. this is your copy button. So you literally click this, it's copied, and then you could paste it into Word. All right, or anywhere you want to paste it. So someone asked, there's a feature on ChatGPT, linked, is it? So you can share your link. I have not tried that yet, but I do know that there is a link that you can share. But to me, that just takes the person to the link. So I will test it out. And all right. So again, think of any administrative task that you have to do. You have to invite, you can do an invitation here. You invite parents to graduations. We have award ceremonies. And just think of how much time we sit as teachers and spend writing letters. And it's not as we can't write the letters. Nobody is saying, oh my gosh, you can't sit and write a letter. However, this is about time saving. So if you can save time writing letters and save time writing lesson plans, and you can edit it, obviously, right? When you take it, you can edit it and make it more personalized if you wish, but it certainly forms a basis which saves you time. So I'm going to show you two more things, and then we're going to just pause a little bit for persons to ask questions. The other thing that I wanted to share with you is how to use ChatGPT in terms of assessment. So we just did a little bit of it in terms of the test, but I am talking about actual full-blown assessments, right? If it can assist with record and evaluation, it can, right? So I will come to that. So in terms of assessment, if I wanted to create an end of term test or an end of year exam for Form 3 Spanish in Trinidad and Tobago, the topics covered included family and I and daily routine and sports, right? Section 1 should be situation in English similar to the CSEC Spanish exam, include 20 multiple choice and an essay section with 4 English prompts of no more than 100 words. So let's see what it does with that. So sometimes it cuts off. You will just click continue generating. And that's because sometimes when the site itself gets very busy, because it's the free version, of course, sometimes that happens, but it doesn't happen too often. All right. So somebody is asking the safety because this phone and date of birth. Not sure why my, hold on now. Right. What about the safety? Right. Okay, I'll talk about that in a little bit in terms of safety and ethical use of it. All right, so you will see what it presents. It's slowing down a little bit, probably because this is a very busy time when persons are using it. All right, but generally it moves pretty quickly, as you would have noticed before. All right. So any Spanish teachers here? What do you think so far?
I tried this already. So like I'm familiar with it and it's really helpful and it does help you manage your time well, especially when you have like more than one exam to set.
Good. And the key, as I said, is to really give as detailed instructions as possible. Monique, you have a question? Or you wanted to add a comment? Oh, not sure. All right. So the thing is, as you can see, right, is what people, go ahead.
Right. If I may, what I find is that because we've played around with it in my department, and what I have found is it is not something that you can do and say, okay, I'm going to use it without even checking it. You cannot do that. You have to continue to use all the best practices that we've learned about in terms of teaching, because there's going to be things that the students probably didn't know, that you didn't teach them. It's not perfect.
Of course not.
I mean, have to go through it and check, but it's very good.
The thing is, remember, it doesn't know what vocabulary you taught. Although it can be fed all of that.
That's right.
So you can put, I want this list of words used. I want, so the more details you put in, the more aligned it would be with what you have. Because it's not something that is going to come and read your mind, right? You have to put in the information. And I think that is the key to it. The more information you feed it, the more it is going to be in alignment with what you actually want to have as your output. So it's not going to be perfect, and you always should check, right? Remember, technology is a tool. So it is not going to be a replacement for you. It is just an assistant. Think of it as like a personal assistant. All right. So that is it in terms of assessment. It can do assessments across different subjects. It can do assessments in terms of different levels. And you can also be very specific. So you can state whether you want open-ended questions. Of course, you can also, what I did try, and it did work, you can upload, if your scheme of work is very detailed, you can copy and paste your scheme of work with all your information in terms of what you would have taught and say, create an end of year assessment based on this scheme of work. And it actually does produce a pretty aligned test. So someone asked about security and so on. Once you put information in here, it will be able to access it, because remember, you're adding to the database. So of course, we do advise that you do not put personal information here. So even like with the letter you are writing to the parent, don't put the child's name, don't put the parent's name, don't put your school's name, right? It could always, you could always fill in that after you have taken it and read it over and edited it. All right, so don't put personal information in here. So this is really just to give you a base. It's like, as I said, it is like your personal assistant. So you're not starting from scratch. I mean, you get a couple of multiple choice questions generated for you. I mean, who doesn't? I mean, certainly it's time savers, right? Because that's the purpose of this session, to show you how it can help you to actually save time. So it goes on, of course, to talk about the essays, etc. And one of the other things that I wanted to show you is that it can summarize text as well. So sometimes you have, or it could provide examples of essays or examples of questions. But one of the things I like, and this to me is something you can share with your students or parents. So sometimes you send home homework, and I know some teachers are going to say, but the children are just going to plagiarize and they're just going to use it and so on. But we have to teach them how to use it wisely. So we have to explain the difference between using this as a resource versus using it as a place to plagiarize or to misalign your actual abilities. So we can actually use this as an explanation. So, you know, sometimes there are topics that we try to teach, and it's always like, how do we teach this topic? So some prompts that would be very useful would be things like, explain osmosis as though I were a 6-year-old. So this could be for a secondary school student. And this could also be in terms of your teaching, because sometimes you need to bring your language down to the place where the students are, and you still can get them to understand. So this can even be sometimes, you have that concept of, I want to be able to explain something to my students, but I really am not so sure how to explain it. And you can actually tell them, break down a concept as though you were talking to a 6-year-old. And so it actually helps in terms of that information, right? So you see, imagine you have a bowl of water with some small pieces of fruit in it, like grapes or raisins, when you put the bowl of water. So it actually goes through something that a 6-year-old could actually understand. And of course, you can actually demonstrate. But you could see this as an example that you could use across secondary schools. So it's primary, but it also could be used across secondary schools, because you want to meet your students where they are at. And so that is another very useful prompt I've found in terms of how to use ChatGPT. Explain to me as though I'm a 6-year-old. I mean, we could put 5 and all of that, right? I just picked 6 as a random number. And so it is able to also create content. So some of us, again, English teachers, foreign language teachers, we can actually do 2 things, right? We can tell it to create a reading comprehension. So create a reading comprehension in English for grade 6 students about pollution. And it does that. And it provides you with the question. You can even ask it for the answers as well. Right? Yes. Question.
I have a question. For example, the prompt that you just put in a little while ago to create the comprehension passage on pollution.
Yeah.
What are the chances of an identical passage or an identical assessment being created if similar prompts are put in?
Right. So very good question. So every time you put something in ChatGPT, it's going to give you a different version of it. It may be similar, but it will be a different version. So you see this regenerate response? Let's take a look at what happens if I regenerate. So I don't like this one, and I click regenerate response without giving it additional instructions. And then it will ask me, hold on. It will ask me actually if the response was better or worse or the same. And it will use this information to improve its system. So it actually does not give you the same response, right? But it actually gave me, it went with the answers. Sorry, this one is the one that I needed. So let me put back the same prompt so you can see it. So I'm going to copy this prompt and I'm going to put it here as well. I'm going to put it in a new chat and I'm going to see what it produces. Same prompt. Let's see if it came up with the same thing. So the title of this one was Pollution Causes, right? Pollution is the presence or introduction into the environment of substances or energy. Let's see what it says here. Pollution is the presence or introduction of harmful substances or contaminants into the environment. Right? So you're seeing the difference? So it produced the same type of reading comprehension, but it changed the words and the flow of it. But it's the same in the same information. So you can actually take, like, if you have a sample passage or a sample test, you can take that sample, copy and paste it in here and say, please make similar passages to this one. So that it actually will generate similar passages or similar questions to what you input. So it will always give you a different answer. So let's regenerate again, just to see. And it will keep asking you this. And it's good to answer them. Huh? But what happens if you keep regenerating without giving it additional information? What you tend to find is it gets, after a while, it will get worse rather than get better. So if there is a reason for you regenerating outside of maybe you want to have different samples of the same topic, you should give it extra information to tell us what needs improving. Yeah? Was that helpful? The person who asked about the reading comprehension?
Absolutely, it was. Thank you. Thank you. It was helpful.
Good. All right. And the last thing, of course, is actually just being able to produce, apart from reading comprehension, apart from tests, it could also help you to brainstorm. So you can actually ask it to help you to brainstorm some ideas. So brainstorm some fundraising, because we know we, as teachers, we do a lot of fundraising, right? So brainstorm some fundraising ideas for students who are graduating. It should be something that that is held during the school day, but not disruptive. And we could actually tell it, you know, brainstorm some, or you could brainstorm how many ever.
You left out the in the question.
Oh, I left out the well, during the school. Okay, but it figured it out. So I mean, and this is just, of course, you can brainstorm anything, right? You can brainstorm games that you can play to teach. So let's try another one. Brainstorm. Somebody give me a topic that you usually can't find a game for. Anybody? Brainstorm what? A game, games to learn. What topic?
Maybe a past tense in a foreign language.
Okay, so let's say brainstorm games to learn passé composé in French for Form 1 students. So we'd have to give it some information, right? They know how to form it and use and form maybe basic sentences. And of course, if you have specific vocabulary, you can actually put it in as well. So it can provide you with a game. Yes, Sherilyn, go ahead.
Yes, I noticed you've been using terms like standard 1, form 1, and so on. Does it recognize universal terms like grade 3 or grade 11 and that type of universal term?
Yes. So the reason I'm using, sorry, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, and so these are the terms that we use, but yes, you can. So I'm going to enter, let's say, grade 3. And if you have even more specific standards, so for example, if it's grade 3, in a particular territory or in a particular country, you put it in here as well, right? So what country are you from?
I'm in the BVI, the British Virgin Islands, Portola.
Okay. So we're gonna put that in, right? What subject do you teach? Let's do your subject area.
Okay. Okay, let's do literacy, language, English language.
So create, let's do some brainstorming. So brainstorm games to teach what topic now?
Yes, that's fine. Let's do nouns.
Right, with grade 3 students from the British Virgin Islands. They know what nouns are and need to practice. So let's see what happens. Right? So if you wanted to see, generate a list of nouns that grade 3 students from the BVI should know. Does this look in alignment?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
So yes, so you put in as much information as possible, even if you teach like girls versus boys, like if you have a, you know, a mixed class, if you enter that kind of information, it would even consider that. So for example, if you teach an all girls class and you ask it for context that you can teach particular topics, it will give you that slant for like a lesson or an assessment or reading comprehension or anything. So you put in as much information as possible. I mean, that is really the key. You would see a lot of prompt sheets saying, do this and do that, but really and truly, the key to it has been, what information do I actually want it to generate? And that's where you start. Think about, what specific information do I need it? Because it can't read your brain, right? It's not magic. It is a language-based model. So the more language you give it, the more it is going to have the output that is aligned with what you actually want it to do. And so it is 7 o'clock. And I mean, we could go on. There's a lot more to discover in it. However, I think you can start. And as you start, you yourself will discover tricks as to how to use it. So people have actually generated things like courses. I mean, outside of teaching, people have even put in, I have these ingredients in my fridge, create a recipe, and it has apparently created some really fantastic recipes. People have been reporting. You can even ask ChatGPT, how can I improve my prompt to get a better assessment? It will even give you that information. So I don't want to keep you too long, but you can also think about things like generating writing prompts, as I mentioned, explaining difficult concepts, ask it to break it down to you as a 6-year-old, to provide examples for when you're teaching, to create your tests, your lesson plans, to write letters, and of course, schemes of work, unit plans, table of specifications, all those wonderful things that teachers are asked to do. You can get ChatGPT to be your personal assistant. So the only thing that I would tell you is, of course, don't use it to write, of course, like essays that you're going to use for academic purposes, etc., because that then becomes plagiarism, right? Don't put work out there. Like if you're going to market something and use ChatGPT, you can use it to assist. It can help. And of course, there's the debate as to whether you should cite ChatGPT. So some universities have actually sent out documentation saying that you can now cite ChatGPT. Be careful with ChatGPT in terms of checking to make sure that facts are indeed what it's supposed to be, because sometimes it does generate incorrect information, not language-based information, but incorrect information. If it's, you know, like it may say, this person did X, Y, Z, so you have to check. It's getting more and more aligned in terms of correctness, but you still have to check it. And in terms of references, if you use to generate references, it can do that now, but you still have to check it, because sometimes it does generate incorrect references. So I will send out some more information on ChatGPT, and we will be doing not just ChatGPT, but other AI free, of course, free tools, because we like free stuff as teachers, right? To be able to help you to save time and to be more productive in your classroom. And of course, saving time also means better mental health. And so I do hope that you go and you play with it, try it out, and remember the key is, what do I want it to do? And the more information you give to the ChatGPT, the better the output. All right, so I'm seeing the comments in the chat, and you're most welcome, and I'm very happy that it was useful. But I always like to hear, so 2 persons, if you could just end us off by giving 2 comments as to how you think you use ChatGPT and how you thought if the session was useful. So just 2 quick comments, right? If you could unmute, 2 quick comments. Am I going to get 2 quick comments?
Well, while you were speaking, I was planning different things for next year because I started to play with it some more, because I had played with it before, but what you gave us this afternoon in terms of the detailed, specific information really was a game changer for me. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Excellent. 1 more person, and then we will log off. Oh, I'm seeing mind blown. Go ahead, Alicia.
Hi, good night. I have used ChatGPT before. I just started using it, and it's pretty, as somebody described, as mind-blowing. What I found very interesting to me was I teach online most of the times, and if a student asks a quick question, I can put it in ChatGPT and I can get the answer pretty quickly. So it's useful. We just have to know the disadvantages, and we know what to do as teachers, what to do and what not to do.
Correct. I mean, and as I said, this was just like the tip of the iceberg, right? I mean, you could imagine. Once you start thinking about the possibilities, I've used it. Even sometimes you want to brainstorm like a theme for graduation. You know, you could just go and just plug it in. And of course, the more information you give it, the better the output. So I will see you all. Thank you so very much for your participation, and look out for more sessions coming soon. So bye, everybody.
Bye, good night. Thank you.
Welcome.
Bye, thank you
Good night,
very
Leon,
much.
and everybody else.